Hi, I'm Selena and welcome to Selena's Musings. Unfortunately, today's video is going to be in theme with my last two videos, which both dealt with the miscarriage of justice, the gaslighting, all of this traumatic kind of stuff surrounding our criminal justice system and its treatment of Black people. We're talking about all the way from policing to sentencing. So my first video, I talked about the sentencing of Amber Geiger and some of the trauma responses we saw around that and the miscarriage of justice for Botham Jean. Then in my second video, I talked about the collective gaslighting we're experiencing around the very suspicious circumstances surrounding the murder of Joshua Brown and what we're asked to believe, and why we have every right, and in fact, really a duty, to be suspicious and call into question some of these things that we're being told that just don't make sense. And unfortunately, less than a week later, I now have to come here and reflect on the tragic murder of Atatiana Jefferson. This is an innocent young woman, or was an innocent young woman, who was killed in her home. For what? For looking out of her window. For looking out of her window. There was a police officer who was supposed to be conducting a wellness check. Nope, was not called over any sort of criminal activity. He was called to do a wellness check. And instead of ensuring wellness, he took somebody's life. And I cannot help but draw the kind of lines together. Here we have it in the same region. An officer, or a former officer, who got away with murdering a man in his home with a life sentence. And then we have another officer who clearly sees no reason he should hesitate shooting somebody after not even disclosing he's a police officer within 4 seconds of asking her or commanding her to put her hands up. He shot and killed her. This is just unacceptable. And, until we really hold folks accountable, we can continue to expect to see this. It has been happening. It will continue to happen unless and until, soup to nuts, we demand systemic change and accountability. So, that's just a little bit that I'm getting at there about the case itself. And again, there's a lot of great resources out there, so I'm going to leave links down below. And pardon me if I'm tripping over my words, y'all, but I am fuming. I am besides myself. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling with words, okay? But I'm going to try to get through this. I hope y'all bear with me through this, okay? Now, what I want to really focus on are the ways in which magically, incredibly, horrendously, somehow there are always some people who will justify these murders. Now, usually what we see is victim blaming. There's usually some sort of ways in which folks will try to dig through and scrutinize people's pasts and say, oh, well, they deserved it. Well, let me tell you something. In the United States of America, we are supposed to have a system where someone has a right to be tried for their crimes. Okay, last time I checked, police officers are not supposed to serve as the judge, jury, and executioner. So how is it that even if somebody has a criminal past, it is okay for law enforcement to shoot them when they are unarmed, when they are subdued, when they are in their homes? Like, I can't even. So let's be clear. Even when somebody has a criminal record or has made mistakes or whatever, it does not give somebody, including law enforcement, an excuse to just execute them on the spot when they are unarmed. Okay? That is unacceptable. In this case, Lee Merritt posted something very important, and I'll include a screenshot of that so y'all can see it. But he made a very good point. He had to lay out the record about who Atatiana Jefferson was. Okay? Let's get this clear before people go about trying to villainize her, trying to turn her into some sort of silhouette, some sort of vignette of a person she wasn't, okay? She was a human being. She had a life. She has family that love her, that are grieving, and we're not going to let her be villainized. But truthfully, there is nothing to it. So far, people have not been able to villainize her. So you know what they've been doing in place of that? I was disgusted to see, and I saw this a few places, but in one place in particular, I'm friends with a pastor in Texas on Facebook, and he made a post simply proclaiming that we need to see an end to this. We need white police officers to stop killing unarmed Black folks. To me, I do not know what is supposed to be controversial about that. Like, they're unarmed, don't shoot them, okay? Horrendously, there were people in the comment section that decided this was an appropriate time to bring up the myth that is Black on Black crime. Now, I'll get into why I call it a myth, but let's make this really clear first. That is what we call a false equivalency, meaning you're trying to compare apples to not even oranges, like zucchini, not even close to the same thing. So you mean to tell me that you think it's acceptable and makes sense to compare criminal homicide inflicted by civilians to murder inflicted by trained officers who are sworn to protect and serve, who are supposed to be knowledgeable in how to de-escalate, who are supposed to reserve lethal force for situations where it's needed. So you mean to tell me that you expect us to hold these professional law enforcement people to the same standards as civilians who are convicted of crimes? Make that make sense, okay? That is like comparing a board certified plastic surgeon to one of these like back alley folks who's injecting cement into people or whatever. Like, it's not the same thing. What? Like, you cannot compare those two. And yet, somehow, y'all are trying to do that. But let's be clear, that's not a valid comparison, okay? So these false equivalencies, Now, let's also talk about this whole myth of Black on Black crime. It is a myth. Do you know why? Because if we're going to call it Black on Black crime, we need to say white on white crime, so forth and so on. Statistically, most homicides are what we call intraracial, which means they're committed by people against people of their own race. Why is that? Because most homicides are committed between people who have relationships with each other, who know each other. They're usually committed by family member, former friend, neighbor, somebody who they know. It's actually not very, very, very common. It does happen, but it's not the norm or the average for people to be killed by strangers randomly. Most people are killed by people they know, and most people's close-knit relationships or neighbors are of the same race. Because why? Because America's still largely segregated. Those are statistics. Those are facts. Look it up. I will put some links down below. You can see the numbers for yourself. Okay? So Black on Black crime, it's a myth. Okay? But also, let's be clear about something. It's just, and sorry y'all, I'm losing my track of thought because like my mind is racing and it's all over the place because I'm frankly besides myself with all this. So yeah, Black on Black crime, that's not a thing that is relevant. And like I said, these false equivalencies, comparing what trained police officers are supposed to do with what folks accused and tried of criminal homicide do, it doesn't make any sense to me, and it shouldn't make any sense to you. So, again, I'm still processing all of this, and I'll be doing some more content, I'm sure, unfortunately, because there's so much to unpack here, and there's so much that we have to do to demand justice. Now, the one, I guess, piece of good news that I have is that From what I understand, this officer was charged with murder today. Though he was not fired immediately, or as he should have been, he resigned. After doing so, he has been arrested and charged with murder, which is the correct charge, in my opinion, because there was no justification whatsoever. This made no sense. So, please leave your thoughts in the comments down below. I'll be leaving, again, some resources, including some links on how and ways that you can support the Jefferson family during this time. I invite you to share your comments and your thoughts down below. I know a lot of us are dealing with collective grief, and I'm gonna let you know right now, if you have any comments down below that are in any way trying to justify this madness, they'll be deleted and you will be blocked, because I'm not playing that. All right, y'all. So until next time, take care, be safe, and I'll talk to y'all later.